Hello and welcome to the second in a series of focusIR videos about helium. We've already learned about what it is and what number 2 in the periodic table is used for. It's now about the markets at the beginning of 2025 and the companies involved in the industry. I'm delighted to be joined again by Peter Hitchens, a research analyst at Oak Securities, which is a specialist natural resources corporate broker. So Peter, I'm speaking to you January 2025. In fact, it's the day that Donald Trump is inaugurated as the 47th President of the United States. Now, as he takes the keys to the White House, how would you describe the market for helium currently?
At the moment, we've seen a bit of a bit of froth taken out of the market. I think you could say the helium balloon is slightly deflated. I think back at the tail end of 2024, people were getting very excited about prices and the price rises we'd seen. What people are now focusing on is the quality of the companies rather than the general helium industry. So people are being a lot more selective on what they want to invest in.
So therefore, let's look at the players. And I'm not referring to Donald Trump now. In the last episode, you talked about Exxon Mobil's involvement within this sector. So is helium an important part of that company's portfolio?
Not a bit. I think if you look at the big integrated oil companies, they're producing a lot of helium. They are the main players in the helium market, but they're producing helium as a byproduct to their gas. So the big gas supplies come from natural gas fields rather than specific helium prospects. So Exxon, yes, they are a big player, but then it's not their major driver of earnings and profits.
So you talk about the earnings, Exxon Mobil, one of the world's top 20 companies by revenue. I'm just wondering, are there any other blue chips involved in the exploration and production of helium, or is the market's fate, does it rest with the juniors?
I think the main players, unfortunately, are the state-owned oil companies, whether you're talking about the oil companies of Qatar and Algeria and Russia. But the juniors are the people who are going to supply the marginal helium that the market requires.
So therefore, let's move to the juniors. Let's start off with Georgina Energy. Now, whenever I do a virtual interview with the chief executive, Anthony Hamilton, he has an intergalactic background, which I suppose is stressing helium's importance to the science of space. So what's your opinion of Georgina? Because it's only just come onto the market.
It's a very interesting model because they're positioned geographically very well in Australia. They've got 2 licenses onshore Australia, which gives them very good access to the growing Asian market. The other aspect of Georgina, which is very exciting, is the fact that one of the byproducts of their production is expected to be hydrogen. And hydrogen is becoming an increasingly valuable green source of energy at the moment.
Okay, so I think we'll leave the hydrogen for our next In Focus series. But so it sounds as though Georgina is positioning itself for Asia's growing industrial gas demand, whereas newly listed Pulsar Helium with its Topaz project in the US and its pure play opportunity in Greenland would probably find Trump's designs on Greenland interesting, to say the least.
Yeah, let's deal with Topaz first. They've just completed the deepening of their Jetstream 1 well on the Discovery, and that has discovered huge levels of helium at very, very high concentration, which is important in the fact that it reduces the cost of getting it out of the ground. So Topaz is looking interesting. Greenland is a lot further down the track, so to speak, in the fact that they've just got the license. They're doing preliminary work to find out what they've got there and if there's anything worth drilling for. As far as Donald Trump with his ambitions on Greenland, if Greenland does become part of the US, I think that could augment the exploitation of minerals in the country.
Yeah, Greenland's very interesting at the moment. Let's move on to Helix Exploration because it's making strategic moves to address what I understand is a critical helium supply gap in the USA. It's acquired a helium processing plant at a discount in the country and confirmed reserves at their Rudyard field. So is this a company that's across your bows?
It is, and I think they're ideally placed because they're located in Montana. So they're very close to infrastructure, and anything they do find and produce can be very, very quickly and cheaply exploited, which is good news for shareholders.
So 2024, a lot of fresh entrants came onto the market interested and exploring for helium. Mendell Helium is one company I don't know much about, although management is known to investors from their experience with other listed enterprises.
Mendel is a bit interesting. It's becoming a chameleon. It was involved in the CBD business, now has an option to acquire assets in Kansas in the US. The interest is whether they're actually going to take up this option and become a helium play or not, and that's still slightly uncertain.
Okay, so in terms of looking at the other companies that retail investors are familiar with, there is Helium One. You talked about the market being frothy. That stock was definitely a frothy stock, but it's expanding its operations now from Tanzania, where they were exploring for their huge discovery. They're expanding from Tanzania to Colorado.
Yeah, it's an interesting move, and it's a way of diversifying the business. They were involved in Tanzania, they got some great discoveries, but the question is there a market for helium in Tanzania, and will they be able to exploit it? What they've done is buy into Blue Star's assets, and they've got a potential cash stream coming on in 2025, which will start to alleviate their financing concerns.
Yes, it's all about the money. So, taking everything into consideration, the incoming US administration, Exxon Mobil, who doesn't seem to be particularly interested in helium, and the junior explorers that you've touched upon, what is the investment thesis for helium as it stands now, January 2025?
I think you've got to be selective in this market. I think everyone got very excited, as I mentioned earlier, about the potential for helium. But investors have got to realize that it's not an easy game. It's a bit like E&P. You've got lots of risks associated with the development of the gas. You've got to look at concerns such as the concentrations of gas, the associated gases that come out with it. But generally, I think the outlook for helium is bright.
And that's what we like. Peter Hitchens, research analyst at Oak Securities. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Again, thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.